This episode of Where Did the Road Go is brought to you in part by our Patreons. If you want to become a patron, go to wheredidtheroadgo.com. And now our show.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? Tonight we're going to be talking about Kundalini and other electrical phenomena that can surround people who have awakened Kundalini. Especially people like myself, that you didn't wake it up intentionally, didn't even know what it was. So tonight we're going to be talking with Gwendolynn, who has had some similar experiences to myself, but also some that are not at all. So hopefully this will connect with other people out there who may also be experiencing this and don't even have a label to put on it. That's the hope anyway. So here you go. This is the show, another show on Kundalini and electrical people. So I am talking to Gwendolynn. And how are you tonight?
I am good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. You had written me, what, about a week ago?
Yeah, it's been about a week now.
Because you listened. Now you said you listened to one of the shows on Kundalini. Was it the first one I did?
It was the one that said Kundalini and electric people. I actually listened to it because it said electric people, and that kind of caught my eye.
Yeah, that was second year, I think. That was an older show.
Yeah, I've been listening a lot more recently, so I'm running out of shows to watch, so I'm going back further and further.
So when you listened to that, you said that you had a lot of things that kind of clicked with you.
Yes. Oh my gosh, all the similarities was really ironic for me because it was like you were talking about me.
And from what you wrote me, it was you have a very powerful electrical thing going on.
Yeah. Yep.
And how long has that been happening to you?
Well, I can't remember. It's for the electric thing. I really noticed it. Of course, cell phones haven't been around for forever. So when cell phones started coming up, that's when I really started noticing it really bad. I couldn't really have a cell phone. I would drain it almost immediately. Even the older cell phones that hold a charge forever, it would only last a day for me.
Huh. So, did you have any weird experiences growing up?
Well, I kind of remember when everything started. Everything started, I think it was probably like 11 or 12. And it was, I was kind of a brat when I was younger. And there was this cat, and I always like mess with this cat and try to get it aggravated. And I never hurt him or anything. I just, I just tickle his ears and pet him by his tail, get him aggravated.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I bent down to pet him, and he rushed up and smacked me. And I'm like, really? So I looked down at his face, and his eyes looked different. And I just felt this wave go through me, and he just stared at me. And it was like at that moment, I felt everything change. It was like it was a totally different person. And he just meowed and ran away. And I never seen him again after that.
Huh. So he wasn't your cat.
Well, he was supposed to be my cat, but I got him and only had him 2 weeks. And it was my first pet. My mom would never let me have a pet. And he only stuck around for 2 weeks. And it was just that one incident. It was just something changed. I just felt this kind of rush go through me. And it was like the cat was looking into my soul. And that's really the first memory I really have. Everything before that it's really sketchy. I don't really have a solid memory prior to that.
Yeah, I have that issue. I have bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's like. And I'll tell people stories like the little bits and pieces I can remember, and they'll say, "That's not right. The stairs were over here," or The bathroom was on the other side of the house. So it makes me feel like the memories that I had from when I was younger, I've kind of placed in there from stories I was told.
Yes. Yeah. And I've found myself having that issue too. I'm a little more aware of it. You know, my parents would tell a story about how when I was a little kid, there was a snowstorm and, someone went to the store, managed to get to the store and pick up some milk for us. And, I really and I was like apparently a little kid and wanted to carry the milk in. And I started to run down the driveway with the milk and slipped on the ice and the milk went everywhere. And after they told me this story, I could kind of visualize it. And then I'm realizing that's not my memory. I don't remember that ever happening.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's like for me because the memories are really cloudy and, almost daydreamy. And I really don't think they're my own memories. I think it's something that my mind's placed in there after hearing stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Um, so after that incident with the cat, what kind of stuff started happening with you?
It was like an explosion went off of things that happened. Um, I started having psychic dreams.
And when you say psychic dreams, like precognitive things?
Yeah, I had well, it was less of a dream, this one incident. It was more like a knowing. And I knew when someone that I called grandpa, he wasn't my real grandpa, but I just shot up in the middle of the night one night. And this was probably only like a few days after this incident. And I told my mom, I said, grandpa just passed away. And she said, no. And I said, yeah, I saw the lights. She said, there's no way you could see the lights from here. And I said, no, it's grandpa. So she walked down the road and come to find out there was an ambulance there at his house. So there was no way I should have been able to see a lights, but in my mind's eye, I could see the lights and I just knew it was him. That's about the same time we started seeing shadows.
Okay.
Uh,
Now describe the shadows.
Well, I could see they were just like fleeting shadows. And, you could almost fool yourself because they shot by so fast. You'd be like, okay, that was just me blinking. But it happens so often. And I tried to tell my mom, and, my mom, she was raised extremely Christian. So she's, oh, it's just in your head. It's just in your head. Then finally one day she's seen it and she's seen a full size man shadow come into the house and put something on the floor and walk back out.
Huh. I'm sure that threw her for a loop.
Yeah. And I told her, I said, I told you, mom. And she said, I should have believed you. So from then on out, she's really believed me.
So she was very Christian. Would you consider yourself very religious?
Yeah. I'm not nearly, I'm more open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
I have, a more wide variety of things that I'll take in as truth. I don't lean on the Bible because it, obviously written by man. They could put anything they wanted in there. So I would consider myself Christian, but an open-minded Christian.
All right. So you had the shadow thing still persisted today?
Yes. They have continued as at a steady rate. They've never went away. Just about 3 weeks ago, I watched, currently I believe I'm living with what I call a mimic.
Okay.
My son has seen my daughter crawl underneath the bed real fast, and he crawled under there after, and there was nobody under there. My daughter has seen me staring at the wall, holding stuff, and she walked past the door and she seen me and she went to walk back to say something to me. I was gone, and then she heard me in the kitchen.
So it's not just you having these experiences.
Right. No, it's not just me, but it feels like I can't get away from it. I don't know if,
Well, you're probably the core of it.
yeah, that's kind of what I feel like. I've seen a man walk through the wall. They've never went away. The shadows have always been around. Anymore, you can see more detail and they last longer than they used to. You can actually see like the stripe on the pants of the man I watched walk through the wall. but they used to just be shadows. You couldn't make out detail.
Huh. That's interesting. Do you have any like trauma in your childhood that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. From my first real memory on, I've always been a pretty happy kid.
Yeah. And that's how I was. I didn't have any trauma in my childhood either, and had all these experiences. But it seems like the majority of people who do seem to be like the core of these experiences, seem to have trauma there somewhere. So it's almost the exception not to.
Right. Yeah. As far as I'm aware, I don't remember ever having any trauma.
So what are some of the? Now you said you talked about that one dream. Have you had other dreams where you knew stuff or knew stuff was going to happen? That stand out to you?
Yeah, I've had dreams about tornadoes touching down, and the next day there'll be a series of tornadoes because I counted them in my dream. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the next day 7 tornadoes hit in Oklahoma.
And where are you?
I am in Ohio.
Oh, okay. So you're not in that tornado alley.
No, thank goodness.
Huh, okay. And anything like how far in advance have you dreamed things?
It varies. Usually one day up to like 2 weeks. Usually no longer than that.
Okay. Let's go back to some of the electronic stuff. Besides draining cell phones, you shock people.
Yes. Most people I know not to touch me, especially when I'm not expecting it. They almost always get shocked, and I don't know what it is. I can't touch anything without getting shocked, and it's loud. You can hear it. Sometimes when I have to touch it, and you'll be able to see the blue spark. So, I can't clock in and out of work without getting shocked. I can't touch anything metal without getting shocked. I mean, I've gotten shocked so bad, like it's almost knocked me over.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Has it ever knocked anyone else over?
It makes them jump for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
You can see because they'll touch me and you'll see them jump like, ow, because it's a pretty severe spark.
And what do you do to computers?
Oh, I can't own right now I'm on my third laptop in a year. This one I've had for 2 months, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get a hold of you because it's just not working right currently. So
what do they do?
They tend to just freeze up and they don't want to run, or they'll black out and you can't get it turned on or off. You'll have to completely unplug it, let it die, then charge it back up. And when it starts doing this, I can't touch it for hours up to 2 days before it'll start working again. If I touch it before then, it's just not going to pick back up. It's just not going to start working again.
Wow. Yeah, it's been a while since I did that to computers. Luckily, since that's also, what I do for a living is partially fix computers.
Yeah, I've blown 2 computers at work. I've only worked there for 5 months now. The tech guy come out and he looked at him and he actually had to unplug it because he opened it up and he said it was just so hot inside. He was afraid it was going to catch fire. That was 2 of them. I've done that too.
Now, does this happen more like if you're under stress, or does it just happen whenever?
I don't really think I've ever paid attention enough to notice any connections.
Okay.
I stress all the time. I have 3 kids and 3 dogs, and I work a lot. So who knows?
So it's constant stress.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we were talking briefly online about Kundalini. Now, have you ever had the feeling of electricity moving through you, like up and down your spine?
Yes. I get like a throbbing, and it's almost that's the best way I can describe it. It's a throb. And this throb will kind of wrap around my hips, and it starts in my lower back. And within a few minutes to an hour, it'll slowly crawl up my spine. It feels like a tickle or tingle. almost like bugs are crawling on you from the inside. And it goes all
Yep.
the way up my back and it goes up to my spine. And part of it rests in my lower neck. And it goes up all the way up in my scalp. And it'll sit there and tingle for a really long time. And it's weird because the feeling I get when it does it is really euphoric.
Yeah.
It's just a real calm. And a lot of times, when it does that, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to sit back and relax and enjoy this because, it's just a real euphoria sense.
Now, when that's happened to you, has anyone ever touched you?
Um, I don't really know. I'm sure they have.
Because sometimes that can spread to other people.
Yeah, and I heard you saying that on the other Kundalini one you did. I have not noticed that. I really want to try that the next time I get to laughing real hard because I have that too where I'll get this uncontrollable laugh
Mm-hmm.
and I just can't stop. And there's nothing I can do and tears are rolling down and there's nothing that's funny at all.
Right, right.
And I'll just be laughing. And when it happens to me again, I'm going to touch somebody because I want to see if it spreads because that would be really cool.
It's probably going to frighten them because they won't know why they're laughing.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to know why. And that's just going to make me laugh harder.
Any pain ever from it when it's moving?
Not once it gets above my lower back. Once it gets above my lower back, it turns into that tingle. I have had like a heat that shoots out from my spine into my shoulder blades, and it is painful. It feels like somebody's taken a hot iron and just sticking it on your shoulder blades.
Mm.
And that's the only other pain above my lower back that I've gotten from it.
Does it ever feel cold?
Yes, I get cold when it could be 90 degrees out, and I don't know why. And it feels like an internal cold.
Yes.
Because it'll be really hot outside, but my toes will get so cold they'll actually turn white.
Wow.
So you can even see the visual proof that I'm freezing.
So you get a little bit of both, the heat and the cold.
Yeah, and my ears and my neck and my chest and my upper back will get really, really hot, but it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not painful.
You were talking too, and this is another Kundalini thing. You said when you were a kid, you would hear a clock ticking, and there was no clock.
Yeah. I used to get really scared sleeping upstairs because it was a finished attic, and I was about 16 or 17 at the time. And my mom would let me sneak downstairs. My dad hated me to sleep downstairs. So my mom would let me sneak downstairs and sleep in the spare room. The spare room was basically empty. It was just a bed and a dresser that had nothing in it. And I would sleep in there. And about the third night that she let me sneak down there and sleep in there, I heard this clock ticking. And I was like, where's it coming from? I looked. And the lights were off. I'm like, I'm scared. I'm not getting turn on the lights. So I ran out of the bedroom. I said, Mom, there's a clock ticking and there's no clock in there. And she's like, what? And she said, hold on. She gets up, she comes in there and she's looking around. She said, Gwen, I don't hear it. And I said, I'm telling you, it was just ticking. I said, it was, and the longer I listened, the faster it ticked. And it was just the way it did it, it ticked. And the longer I listened, the faster it ticked. And it almost felt like a bad omen to me. I just got this really eerie feeling. And I felt like when it stopped ticking, something bad was going to happen. And I had to get out of there before it stopped. And she couldn't hear it. So I'm like, okay. She said, Gwen, if you get up again, I'm going to have to make you go upstairs because your dad's going to know you're sleeping down here. So she leaves, and it takes every bit of 30 seconds after she left. All of a sudden, you hear the tick, tick, tick. And I shot up out of there so fast. I was like, I know there's no clock in here. We looked, she helped me look and look and look for a good 10 minutes for a clock that didn't exist.
Wow. Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah. And it makes you feel like you're going crazy because, some things other people just don't get.
Well, sure. And when things like that would happen to me as a kid, I would know there was no reason I should be hearing these things. And I talked about, steam coming out of the trombone I was playing.
Yeah.
And I knew it wasn't happening, but there I was watching it. I couldn't deny what I was seeing, even though I knew it wasn't real.
Yeah. And I'll kind of, it's not a steam, but I'll see like, you know, when you're driving a car and the heat comes off after you're done driving it and you can see the waves in the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be looking straight into my peripheral. I'll see those waves. And as I look, I can watch them disappear. And then I'll look back again and the waves will come back. But they don't come back right away. So I'm like, well, I know it's not in my head because they would come back right away. So it's just like these waves sometimes that I'll see out of my periphery.
Well, see, I don't know if that means it's not in your head necessarily. It just means it's structured somehow.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I know nobody else is seeing it because,
Right.
you know, obviously they'd say, oh, what's this theme? But it's just like, you know, I just don't get what it is.
Well, I talked about on a few shows, seeing the moon kind of pop through the clouds and knowing that that wasn't really happening. But
Yeah.
yet I was looking right at it as normally as I would look at a car driving down the road. I was not in an altered state of consciousness or anything else.
Yeah.
And I'm quite sure no one else would have seen it if they were there. So
Right.
it's
That's
just
odd.
yeah, it's something about how we perceive reality.
Right.
Um,
And that's a good way to look at it. I hadn't really thought about that before, but that's a really good way to think about it.
do you have any poltergeist stuff around you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I feel like I always keep up this mental guard. Like, because when I got this mental guard up, I feel like it doesn't happen as often. And I'm not sure if that's just, you know, me maybe making myself think it doesn't happen as often when I put up this mental guard. But things will just fall off of places. They could be there for months and months and months and never move. And then next thing you know, they're hitting the floor. Or I had a stack of books on a dresser, and I remember putting this book back because I had a certain order that I'd always put them in. And I'd always put this one book on bottom. I slid it back underneath and I went to walk away and I heard something hit the floor. I looked back and there's that book that I put on the bottom of the stack. And I'm like, really? I was like, if you want it there, I'm leaving it there. I'm not messing with it.
So how often does stuff like that happen to you?
It depends, honestly. I feel like it depends on me, as weird as that sounds. If I'm in a high stress situation or anything like that, I feel like it happens more often.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's probably coming from you.
And I've thought about that too, and I'm just like, you know, I've always heard the poltergeist stuff comes from, you know, preteen girls mostly, and I'm like, I'm not a preteen girl anymore. This should be not happening.
Well, if you haven't listened to the shows I did with Shirley Black, I mean, her incident started with near death experiences, but she has poltergeist stuff as well, and
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
yeah,
I'm just like, man, this happens just way too often for it to be anything natural because it seems like it follows me. So I feel like it has to be me.
yeah. It's probably spontaneous PK. I mean, all the stuff you're describing sounds like it probably comes from you. It's just a matter of getting it to settle down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear knocking a lot.
Oh, that's very common.
Yeah. I hear knocking on the window. Just last night, even, I was out in the garage and I just come in from the garage and was in the kitchen. And all of a sudden I hear this boom, boom, boom. It was 6 consecutive and it was in doubles. It was boom, 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 and up to 6. And it was so loud. And I'm like, is somebody shooting? I live kind of out in the country, so it's not anything uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard my daughter yell. And I come running in there and she said, something just banged on the window. And she did the same consecutive knocks that I heard. And I was like, I don't know what that was. But I went ahead and walked around the house because I'm more afraid of people than I am of what I'm experiencing.
Yeah. And that's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I feel like, you know, I honestly feel like it can't really hurt me. It's just really scary sometimes. But I don't want to take on a person.
Right. You know a person can hurt you.
Right, exactly. And I'm little, so I don't know if I could take somebody.
What's this? What would you say is the thing that scared you the most in your experiences?
Oh, um, this is why I actually started sleeping down in the room when I was about 16 or 17 that I heard the clock ticking in because of this incident that I'm going to tell you about. I was sitting, it was a completely furnished attic, and it had its own living room and its own bedroom area. And I was sitting in the living room area, and I just got this really weird feeling all of a sudden. And right when I got this weird feeling, I heard my cats. I had two cats at the time, and they never fought. I heard my cats just do this really weird sounding screech. And then they just went at it. And then I felt something rush through me and I just blacked out. And next thing I know, my mom's like screaming my name, and I hear something. I hear my mom scream my name, and then I hear something else. And I finally figure out it's me screaming.
Oh, wow.
And I stopped screaming. And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Mom, something really bad just happened. I can't stay up here." I said, "Something just went right through me. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared." So she let me come down that night and sleep on the couch. And the next day I got up and she was fixing BLTs, my favorite. And I looked down at my watch to see what time it was, and my watch had stopped at the exact moment whatever happened passed through me.
Huh. See, it sounds like you have something interacting with you.
Yeah.
The cat thing definitely stands out to me. The first experience you mentioned. It's just I don't think I've ever heard an experience like that one. And it's
one with,
when you looked in the cat's eyes and you felt
yeah.
differently. And it's almost like triggering something in my head that I can't quite put my finger on, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, the way the cat looked at me, it was the cat, but its eyes had changed. And it was like it was looking into my soul.
Yeah.
And immediately I felt something change inside. But after that happened, whenever something really bad, like what the other story I was telling you has happened, I will hear a cat do a really strange meow prior to it. And sometimes there's not even a cat around. So it's weird, and I hadn't made that connection until you just said that about the cat, my first experience.
Are you a big cat person?
No. No. I will love on a cat all day long, but I'll be the first person to use the roller to get all the cat hair off and wash my hands. I love animals, but just cats. Yeah. I actually have a cat currently, and I'll pet him on his head, and then I'll say, "Come here, get your cat, Ezra." That's my daughter's name.
Huh. Yet they seem to kind of be your spirit animal.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. But I used to have two cats, and cats used to be my go-to animal until I got my first dog. And then I realized I was a dog person, but I still like cats.
Now you said, let's see, what did you had said something else. You were talking about the pain from the Kundalini. Now, did you go to the doctor for that? Is that what it was?
I have. Yeah, I have. I went to the doctor for my my really bad headaches I get. They've done I don't know, it's CT scans or whatever it is. And they put me on migraine medicine, which I had a severe reaction to, and I believe I had the reaction to because I didn't need it. I went to my doctor about my back, and they said, well, they said, well, it could be sciatica, but it shouldn't be traveling up your back. And nobody really has a solid reason. I feel like a lot of times they just give you all these different reasons and hope that you'll believe one of them and go away.
There was where is it? I was just reading part of it. You said there was heat coming from their stomach.
Oh, yeah, it's really weird. I can tell where somebody has pain.
Oh, okay.
I can feel the heat that radiates off of it. I can tell, like, if they've got an internal wound or something, or they've got something wrong inside with them. It's just like this radiating heat that comes off of that area. And I don't know what exactly it is. I couldn't tell them exactly what, but I could definitely say, you've got an issue with your stomach. One time, I thought it was normal, honestly. I broke my finger and I was driving, and every time I turned the steering wheel, it hurt really bad. And I put my finger close to my lip so I could feel the heat. And I said, man, I really think I broke this. There's a lot of heat coming off of it. And my friend that was with me looked at me like I was nuts. And she said, what do you mean there's a lot of heat coming off of it? I said, yeah, when you get hurt, you can feel the heat coming off. She said, no, you can't. I was like, what? I guess it's not a normal thing. I was probably 20 years old when I found that out. I thought it was normal.
Well, sure, because you didn't have anything to contradict that information.
Right.
But I actually know what that's like. I mean, you can feel, yeah, definitely. At least in myself, I can feel injuries get hot.
Yeah, and I can feel it on other people too. And depending on how hot it is, depends on the severity. Like I knew when to take my son to the hospital because I'm pretty sure his foot was broke because there was a lot of heat coming off of it rather than just a minimal amount of heat. So it depends on how much heat is coming off of it. And I just, take my hand and go about 1 to 2 inches above the surface of their skin, and I can just feel how much heat is radiating off that part.
Now, you've also experienced light flashes.
Yes. And I've actually experienced the exact opposite, where the light gets sucked out. It's almost like the light reverses. It's now the light flashes that I get, they're quick. And I've heard you talk about them. You say the light goes out a little slower.
Right.
Mine goes out a little quicker. Like you'll see the light flash and then it's gone. Or you'll see light smears. And the best way I can describe it is it looks like somebody just took light and smeared it in front of your vision and then it goes away.
That's interesting. Now, what does it look like when you say the light gets sucked out? Do you mean everything goes dark?
Yeah, it's almost like, and no weird feelings, nothing changes as far as how I feel. I'll just be sitting there and all of a sudden the light will just kind of whoosh out and then blink back on. And it doesn't like whoosh back in like slowly, like it almost tunnels out and then it just blinks back on.
Now, has anyone else experienced this with you?
Yes. Yeah, my daughter especially, like she'll experience it at the same time as me. And I'll say, did you just see that light go out? And she goes, yeah. And then it's back on again. And she'll experience the same time as me. And she's actually started the same problems that I started when I first started having experiences. She was actually pretty tortured when she was 3 years old, which that was a whole other experience.
How so?
She would talk about a creature that would slither out from between her box spring and her mattress. And she was only 3. And I really tried to guard my kids from experiences like I had. And I tried to downplay them without making them feel like I didn't believe them. And because I didn't want them to be scared. I want them to go to bed at night. So, I like my mama time.
Right.
So she would tell me about this creature that would slither out from between her beds. And she said it would go over and kick her books off of her desk and sit on the couch and look out the window. And she would get scared and cover her head. And sometimes it would sit on her chest and it would just sit there. And she'd feel like she couldn't breathe. But she said she would watch this thing walk around, and she was tortured for a good 2 months. And finally, one day I just got so fed up. And I tried not to ever acknowledge whatever it was that we were dealing with, because I always thought when you acknowledged it, it got worse.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so I never acknowledged it, and I would never talk to it. But I got so fed up, I just spoke into the air. I said, you leave my daughter alone. If you want to mess with somebody, you mess with me. You will not enter this bedroom. You will not. And I just basically laid down the law. And that night I went to bed and I felt something kick the end of the bed. And I look up and here's this creature. It looked like a really triangle cat. Its head was really triangle, its ears were really triangle, very sharp and pointy, and its body was almost square. It was just something, it was almost something that a 3-year-old would create in their head, to be honest with you. And I actually thought about maybe she had created it. And I looked up and I seen its head turn slowly. And right when its head looked at me, it had red eyes. And I said, go away. And that's the only thing I could get out. I just felt the heat just rush up into my face. Just this complete panic took over and it just absorbed into the darkness. And that was the last experience I had from that particular thing.
It's almost like baby's first tulpa.
Yeah. It was just really cartoony, and it was the weirdest thing. And, after I hadn't learned about tulpas until way later, but I knew about poltergeist, and I'm like, maybe she's creating this.
Well, I mean, whatever is enabling you to do it may also be enabling her to do it.
Right, exactly. I think maybe I passed it down to her, poor thing.
Does anyone else in your family have any weird stuff?
Not as bad. My sister can drain electronics, but she's never really described anything crazy like I've dealt with. But maybe those two things don't always go hand in hand. My mom has a tendency to be able to sense things. She was over at my house for Christmas dinner this past year, and I just recently moved into this house. And she's standing there talking to somebody, and I walked up to her because I found this box of tissues, this random box of tissues, and I never buy tissues. I always use like the roll of toilet paper you see sitting on the dining room table. I'm kind of hillbilly, but I'm like, where did this box of tissues come from? And I said, Mom, did you bring in a box of tissues? And she looked at me real funny, and I said, what? And she said, yeah, I brought the box of tissues in. She just looked really confused. And I was like, okay. So I turned around and walked away. And as I walked away, she said, wait. And I turned around and she said, was that you that just asked me about the box of tissues? I said, yeah. And she goes, that was not you. I said, what do you mean? She said, there was somebody else standing there instead of you. And she described him, and it turned out to be someone's mom that was there that had passed away. It looked just like her. When she described him, he said, that sounds just like my mom. And it was almost like she was seeing something standing in front of me, and I was talking to her, so she got really confused.
Wow. Okay.
It's a little weird. It's I've never ever heard of anybody experiencing something like that, and it kind of blew my mind because she was even shown a picture, and she said, yeah, that looks just like her, but a little older without curly hair. And he said, well, that was her when she was younger, and she had a perm in that picture. So,
it sounds it sounds like a lot of this stuff is probably coming from you on an unconscious level.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, it sounds like there's something else there trying to guide you.
Yeah, and I always have had this feeling that there has been a man, a middle-aged, early 40s man that's always been around me. And I thought he was actually attached to a piece of furniture that I had. And when I moved out of my old house, I decided to leave it there. And I kind of already had that feeling. And I looked at this piece of furniture. I'm not crazy, I promise. And I said, well, I guess this is goodbye. And they had a glass door on it. And I went to push the glass door shut. And it was like somebody hit it, punched it from the other side, and it shattered. And I was just pushing it with one finger. The glass shattered everywhere. And I'm like, I'm not touching it. I walked out. I'm not cleaning that up.
Huh. So you got rid of the rid of that,
yes,
but it didn't really change anything.
it didn't change. I still feel him, and I feel like I might have seen him, like a full apparition of him recently when I watched the gentleman walk through the wall.
Oh,
That's
you
the
think
first
that was
time
him?
I really believe that that was him. And I really want to investigate like my own house, but I've always been afraid, like that's the number one don't break rule. Don't investigate your own house. But I really want to. I want to see what kind of stuff I can come up with.
I think in a way you'd be investigating yourself.
Yeah, and I actually feel like that would be a big part of it.
Now, you said you'll be laying in bed and you'll hear snippets of conversation.
Oh, yeah. Um, and it doesn't have to be when I'm going to sleep. It can be when I'm really relaxed too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I could be laying there and I will hear little bits and pieces of a conversation that I'm just not involved in. It'll be one sentence here, another sentence there, and none of these sentences that I hear coincide with each other. It'll be things like, she went up the tree, start the car, just weird things that don't really ever go together. And I don't ever feel like it's anything particular communicating with me. I've almost, in a way, thought maybe I'm picking up on conversations um, from the past or present that has happened in the space that I'm in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the best way I can describe it.
I don't know if that's really that unusual. I suspect other people have that experience too, and I almost wonder if that's just our brain kind of relaxing and kicking out random information.
See, and that's what I kind of thought too. I thought maybe, it's just me starting to dream, but I can even do it when I'm just really relaxed.
Yeah. You
And
might
just,
be more sensitive to it.
yeah. And I'll hear these loud booms.
Mm.
Sometimes my dogs will react, sometimes they won't. And I feel better when they don't, because then I'm like, oh, it's just in my head.
Right.
Because then I don't have to get up and look around the house. But yeah, it'll be, and it'll feel like it vibrates me even. It's just this huge boom. This just
Mm-hmm.
reverberates through my whole body. And it'll shoot me straight up out of bed. And I don't even have to be almost asleep for that. I could had just laid down and I'll hear it.
Do you have any incidents of sleep paralysis?
Actually, no, I've never experienced. Actually, I had the opposite. I sleepwalk.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So I've never had sleep paralysis. I'm glad I haven't because it sounds scary. But sleepwalking is scary too because I never know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Like, do you seem to know what you're doing when you're asleep? Like, does some part of you seem to be controlling accurately, I guess?
I'll remember bits and pieces. Sometimes I'll find evidence and I'll be like, yeah, I kind of remember bumping my knee and knocking this over. Or I wrapped my whole bathroom, both bathrooms. I got two bathrooms. I wrapped both bathrooms from top to bottom in toilet paper one night. I don't know what the point of that was. I have 8 dog treats.
Oh,
It's the worst because I never know what I'm going to do. And the only way I know is I'll find evidence the next day and I'll be like, "Oh, I vaguely remember something like that happening."
how often does it happen?
Oh, it's been happening quite often since I moved in this new house.
Hmm.
Um, it's been a stressful move for me. It's been a very high stress, and the activity, the light flashes, the back pain, everything that I've experienced has just magnified since I've moved in. And I just keep thinking to myself, if I just find a way to work through this, I won't have to deal with all this activity. The problem is learning how,
Yeah. Do you ever meditate?
Well, I hadn't. When I first learned about Kundalini from you, I I became obsessed. I researched it and researched it and researched it. And I decided to sit down one day and try a little small exercise as far as Kundalini yoga and meditation. And I sat down on the living room floor and I sat cross-legged and I started. And next thing I know, the fridge is making this god awful, like clinking, banging, humming. And I'm like, oh, great. I think I just broke the fridge. So I got up and I'm like, well, I'm done with this for now. I don't need to be breaking no electronics tonight.
Maybe you need to go out into the woods.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Because it's, you know, I mean, my activity was with the Kundalini and the electrical stuff was real bad at one point, and it's not now. And I feel that meditation was a part of that. Like understanding also what I was dealing with helped, you know, like once I realized, oh, this is energy, it's coming from me, because I kind of picked it up as something psychically attacking me for a long time.
Right.
My head would feel like it was cracked open. You know, and it was like, what's happening to me? Did I, you know, do I have some kind of spirit attacking me or something like that? But once I understood, oh, this is coming from me, even if it's, you know, even if I'm interacting with something else as well, that thing isn't causing it. This is being caused by energy that's inside of me. Then it's a lot easier to kind of make progress with.
Right. And I felt the same way all the time growing up until just recently when I learned about Kundalini. I feel a lot better because I really thought that I was haunted my whole life. And that's a scary feeling, especially when you've dealt with what almost seems like demonic forces. It's a really scary feeling because you never know when that demonic things are going to come back. And now I kind of feel like it was a play on my fear. The more fearful I became, the more scary things got. And so that kind of made me think, okay, maybe it's like the poltergeist thing. Maybe the more fear I feed it, the more charge I give it.
Yes.
So that's when I learned to stop paying attention to it and to kind of just let things ride out. You would feel the tension and the atmosphere in the whole house just build and build and build. And then this one big thing would happen, and then everything would, all the pressure in the house would go away. And then it would start all over again, build, build, build. One big thing, one really scary thing, and it would all die back down again.
And it's also, I mean, when we talk about poltergeist, we you know, and it coming from somebody, I think it was Red Pill who pointed out that it's not impossible that something could be hijacking that energy as well. You have someone who has a lot of energy and something goes, ooh, I can use this.
Yeah, and I've actually developed a theory on that. You know, if you have that energy to put out to cause this type of situations, I feel like maybe that's a beacon for other things to come and swarm.
Could be. Both good and bad.
Yeah. So you never know what you're going to get. And I've always felt like not all experiences have been the same. So I'm like, maybe just things are just passing through because I'm some sort of beacon.
Yeah. You're a lighthouse.
Right, right.
Huh. Oh, going back to the snippets of conversation, that's also something you get in meditation sometimes. And when you try to quiet your mind, sometimes you'll start picking up, I think Crowley called them atmospherics, where you just get snippets of other people talking. And he just said, you know, his thing was just ignore it. It'll go away.
Yeah. And I actually listen to your show a lot at night when I'm going to bed, just so I don't have to hear it. Yeah, I don't like to hear it because it's annoying. It keeps me up. I'll listen to your show a lot and it kind of drowns it out. I can focus on that instead of the voices that's just randomly talking sentences here and there.
I get that more when I'm really exhausted. Like, I don't get it when I'm normally going to sleep. I'll get it when I'm really, really, like, I've been up 3 days and I'm like, I need to go to sleep. And that's when I start hearing things. But occasionally I'll hear just like a word spoken in the room or something when I'm trying to go to sleep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or a breath, like a very distinct, and I'll be like, okay, click on the light real quick. Yep, nothing in here with me. Click the light back off, you know?
Yeah, but there's a difference in that too, because, you know, when you're laying there sleeping, you can tell the voices aren't audible. It's not anything that anybody else could hear. But
Right.
then,
Yes.
like you
Yeah.
said, you'll hear a voice, just one word, or I'll hear my name,
Yeah.
or I'll hear a little like a whisper or a shush,
Yep.
and it's very audible. And I'm like, that's scary. So
And
yeah,
I heard actually sometime in the last couple months, I heard like a very distinct shh, and I was
yes,
like, "Is there somebody in the house?"
I
Like, and I got up and I checked the house and I said, "Nope," and everything's locked, everything's fine, okay.
yes,
Because I wasn't
yeah,
asleep, I just laid down and heard it, and I was like, "Okay, I need to check that out."
right. Yeah, I could be sitting there reading a book and I'll hear it.
Yeah.
Um, but I've with the mimic I'm dealing with now, um, it has mimicked just about everybody in the house, including my dogs.
Hmm.
Uh, and I haven't seen my dogs, but my dog was carrying a toy down the hallway, and I heard it started out like a motorboat sound. Everybody was in the living room watching TV, and she went to carry this toy down the hallway, and it almost sounded like a motorboat sound. Like it started out, and she dropped her toy and immediately freaked out and started barking. And then it went from a motorboat sound to a deep, low growl. And it wasn't really scary. I don't feel like it was anything menacing. I feel like it was just playing with her. Like
Hmm.
it got joy out of being a little jokester.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Yeah. The mimic thing's interesting. That started when you moved into this house.
Yes, but I actually dealt with that prior to
Oh,
living here
okay.
too. Um, I would go downstairs, and I would smell my mom's perfume, and I'll, holler for her, mom, mom, mom. And, she got up real early. I was always a night owl, stayed up real, real, real late. She would get up at 5 a.m. and I'd come downstairs way before she'd have to get up, and I'd smell her perfume and I'd look everywhere for her like, man, why is she up so early? And she's asleep in her bed,
Hmm.
and whatever it was mimicking her perfume. I'd hear my dad's voice yelling up the stairs to me, and I'd come down and he wouldn't even be home. So I've
Yeah.
always dealt with a mimic style.
That makes me think of the very short story where someone hears their mother yelling from downstairs, and as they're about to go down the stairs, their mother stops them, and they go, "What? Why did you call for me?" And they go, "That wasn't me."
Yeah, and my mom had even heard it. She had learned obviously from the first story to believe me, but after all the stories I've been telling her, I think she started to get her doubts. And then one day, I always heard this little girl, and it wasn't the mimic, but I always heard this little girl, and I would tell my mom about her. And then one day we were sitting there, and we were all upstairs, and then this little girl said something through the downstairs door. And she was speaking through the door, so you couldn't hear what she was saying, but it was a definite, like 7 syllable sentence. And I looked at my mom and said, "Tell me you heard that." And she said, "I did hear that one." So that made me feel good.
Huh. That's really fascinating. Um, because that one's hard to say whether that's coming from you or, there's something else there.
Yeah, I don't know. And the only reason I say it was a little girl was because its voice was very tiny. I don't know. It could have been a really young boy. Who knows?
Right, right.
I didn't really get any feeling off of it. I would just hear it. So
Huh.
that one was kind of cool because it always happened at the best times when it was the least scary.
Well,
When I
well,
was at least with somebody.
you definitely have two things going on right now, which is as you said, this has been stressful for you. This whole move, plus you just moved, which is that liminal state that tends to
Mhm.
draw this stuff out.
Yeah, I don't really feel settled. So yeah, I would say that it's still kind of a liminal period because I'm not quite settled, like emotionally yet. I'm not quite settled to the house. So yeah.
Okay, can I ask why the move has been stressful?
Um, I gave up my other home uh to be able to move in here. There was no way I was going to have two houses.
Ah,
So, and I had grown quite attached to the house because as weird as it is to say, that was the one and only house where I didn't see shadows.
Really?
And I still seen the flashes of light. I still seen the light suck out of the room. I'd still hear knocks and stuff here and there. Um, but it was a much more calm. And I'm not sure why.
Did you feel more comfortable there?
I did. I
Yeah.
felt pretty happy there. I actually had grown to love the place. Um, and I began to love it more when I wasn't dealing with all the craziness. But after about 4 years of living there, I realized I kind of miss it. It was a little bit entertaining. It was like it's like you never had a boring moment. And then we move in here, and I'm like, yeah, it's scary again.
Hmm. Well, yeah, and like I said, the stress combined with the liminality is definitely a recipe for this stuff ramping up.
Yeah.
Hmm. This is really fascinating.
I have a lot of things that I have dealt with over many years.
What's one of the ones we haven't talked about?
Um, well, there was a dream I had. It was a repetitive dream, and uh, it was about this house. And I used to get trapped in the basement with all these haunted beings. And I knew what this house looked like inside and out, top to bottom. And just recently, I've been doing some research on my family history, and my dad had taken me to one of the houses he had grown up in. And sitting across the street was this house. And I said, that is the house. I said, I can tell you what every room in the house looks like, how the layout is. I said, that is the house that I've dreamed about all these years. The only difference is it was more run down in my dream.
Hmm.
And that was kind of odd to me because I had always known that eventually I was going to come across this house one day. And then I finally did. And I have this feeling like I need to buy that house. But obviously, that's not going to be a dream come true. But like, I just feel the need to just go and walk through that house. There's got to be a reason you dream about it, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, that would be the first thing I wanted to do.
right. I guess
Although
it's
although it doesn't seem like it was a very pleasant dream.
no, but I feel like that was when I would have these dreams. Each time I'd have this dream, it would become more and more lucid. Now almost all the dreams I have complete control over. Like all my dreams are lucid. I can say exactly what's going to happen when it's going to happen. The only time that they are not is when I'm viewing my dream from inside of another person. Like I'm a
Hmm.
different person in my dream.
Yeah.
And whenever I have those types of dreams, I know that I need to check the news, warn people, talk to people because it's going to come true. And it's always when I'm viewing what's going on from another person's eyes. I have no control over those types of dreams. I know, like in a few of the dreams, I'm a man. And
Right.
I'm like, well, this isn't me. And I have all of my lucid thought processes, but I have no control over the situation.
Hmm.
It's
That's
like I'm just
interesting.
along for the ride.
And I'll find I will occasionally dream myself as someone else, but it's not generally prophetic. But I've been told that's weird, especially if you're dreaming you're like male or female when you're not the opposite sex. It's I've been told at least that that's a little bit odd.
Yeah. Yeah. And it didn't, those kind of dreams didn't start until I became completely lucid over this repetitive dream that I was having. I kind of feel like it's connected. I feel
Hmm.
like that dream particularly helped me take control over my dream state.
You just can't control your body when it's asleep.
Right, exactly. I can walk around. I
it's
just do
it's
whatever.
it's like your mind is focused in the dream state, and a trickster takes a hold of your body and goes and eats dog biscuits
Yes, exactly. And I wake up with dog biscuits in my teeth.
and toilet paper around your bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a bad one.
Are you sure you did it? There wasn't a poltergeist?
No, because I was told that I was up doing things in the bathroom in the middle of the night. They weren't sure what I was doing, but it was really noisy.
Gotcha.
And I had a gnarly bruise on my knee the next morning.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was definitely me. The odd things that we do in our sleep.
There is also, you mentioned the banging, that is sometimes diagnosed as exploding head syndrome.
Yeah, I actually did read that because whenever I have something weird going on, I try to research it. I love to get as much knowledge as I can. So when it became real bad, I started to research it. And I also learned that the sentences, they're not sure what causes them, but they've given it a name, and it's called auditory hallucinations.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Now, if you can get sentences that mean something,
that would be kind of nice, because then it would have a point. But right now, it's so nonsensical. It's annoying.
Well, that's why I say I think it's your brain just kind of throwing junk out there.
Right.
Kind of like when you get those flashes, you go to sleep and you dream about all the stuff you did in the day. It's kind of like a subconscious dump of information.
Yeah.
It's just happening before you fell asleep. So you're just getting little snippets of nonsense as your brain tries to unwind.
And that makes sense. Yeah. I'd like to know why. Is it your mind causing it, or is it something you're picking up on? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. And it sounds like a lot of what's happening to you is your mechanism for coping with stress. Like it's causing you to shut down electronics and generate all this other stuff, or generate energy that other stuff is taking up and using.
Right.
So instead of you bearing the brunt of it, you're projecting it out there unconsciously.
Yeah, and that's actually that's kind of the conclusion I've come to. It's the best way I can describe it.
And I would say meditation is definitely a good start. Just don't blow up your freezer.
Yeah, no kidding. I have a really hard time with meditation because I can't sit still. I've always got to be doing something. And I feel like if I could just sit down and take time to meditate, maybe I'd be able to work through some of these things.
You can try. Sometimes I use music. I don't, if you like anything that's sort of psychedelic sounding.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything from Pink Floyd to Fields of the Nephilim can work. And just like try to meditate while that's going, because it has that sort of hypnotic state going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that could be really helpful to me, because I feel like that does kind of quiet my brain long enough to sit and let all thoughts escape me.
Right. Right.
So
sometimes I have that problem where I just don't want to just sit there, and it's like, I really want to meditate, but I can't sit still.
I've got this to do and this to do.
Exactly. So that's what I'll throw on, like Elysium from Fields of the Nephilim or something, and then try to meditate to it. And that usually works.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that. Yeah, because any other time it lasts the whole 2 minutes, and then I'm like, I gotta do dishes.
Yeah.
But there was also an experience that I thought was kind of creepy. I was back in the house that I lived in when I was 16, 17. I lived there for 15 years. So I lived there for quite a long time. And I was taking my dogs out, and I saw something rise above a banister that we had, kind of blocking the concrete from the grass area. And it rose above, and it looked like a head with long hair. And I'm like, oh. And it kind of slowly went back down behind the banister again. And I was like, I handled that quite well. That didn't scare me so bad. And it was almost as if it knew what I was thinking, because it rose back up again and it kind of glided along. And that's when I got scared. It looked like something straight out of The Grudge. It was just this black mass of like hair in a head shape. And I ran and grabbed my dog, and I ran in the house. I said, okay, that one scared me.
Did the dog have any response to it?
No, because she had her nose at the ground. She was on a
Oh.
mission to go to the bathroom.
um, I had another question. Oh, have you ever seen any UFOs or anything like that?
I have. I've seen two. Um, I've never had any kind of UFO abduction experiences or anything like that. But I have seen things in the sky that I just can't explain. One of them was this standard silver cigar shape in the sky. And it kind of wobbled, kind of like you said the moon did. And it wobbled, and then it would steady itself, and then it would wobble again. And me and five other people have seen that. But then the other one I seen, this one I thought was the most awesome because it was unlike anything I've ever heard described before. And I was looking out across the way, and I seen this big bright orange light above a church. And it had to have been around Halloween because in my head I was like, wow, did they really hang up a Halloween decoration? It looked like a giant pumpkin.
Huh.
It didn't have any kind of detail or nothing. It was just a big bright orange light. And as I was looking at it, I was like, I should go get my phone because I don't think that that's a decoration. And I was like, but I don't want to miss it. I really wish I would have went and got my phone to take video of it because it slowly just like melted into itself. It's almost like it just folded into itself and changed shapes as it slowly disappeared into nothing. And that was really neat because then I knew, there's nothing that I know of in this world that could do something like that.
Yeah, that's a little freaky. But definitely fits the UFO thing where it just fades out.
Yeah. And if it seems like it was pretty close. I mean, the church was probably only about, I don't know, an eighth of a mile down the road. And looked like it was hovering right in front of this church. So it was really close, I thought.
Huh. All right. No, I was going to say any weird monster encounters, but you've already labeled a couple.
Yeah, but no cryptid experiences.
Okay. Right.
I've never witnessed I live in Ohio. I drove over to Loveland. I drove around, spent the night, camped, never seen the Loveland frog. I've never seen any cryptids as much as I would like to, but I've not been so lucky.
Have you always been interested in paranormal stuff?
I first became interested in cryptids. I didn't want anything to do with anything paranormal because it was still pretty new and scary to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I really got interested in cryptids, and that was the start of me just going beyond and researching. And I actually dabbled in, Wicca and things like that as a teen. Energy, the things around me really ramped up at that moment in time. That's that's actually when something passed through me. And I feel like that was a warning to get out of whatever I was in because I feel like something bad was going to happen. So that was the last time I'd ever do anything with Wicca or candles or chants or anything like that.
Well, I would also wonder if being raised Christian, there wasn't sort of an unconscious negativity associated with things like Wicca.
Oh yeah. Because my whole mom's side of the family, very, very, very Christian. There's no such thing as ghosts. It's all demons.
Right.
Anything you experience is all in your head unless a demon is messing with you, and then you're possessed. It would go from 0 to 100. You were either normal or possessed.
Has that ever been suggested to you by your mom's family?
Yes. Not suggested to me, but they would always call me the demon child. And that's kind of hurtful growing up, but
sure.
I dealt with a lot of outbursts over not being able to talk with anybody about this stuff and nobody hearing me, and it would just frustrate me, and I would take off and not want to come back home. And it's a hard thing to deal with when you don't have anybody to back you up when you're a kid.
Yes. Yeah. You related one story where the power went out where you worked.
Oh, yeah. Um, I work in an office setting. This is where I blew up the computers. I work in an office setting, and I was doing my work, and all of a sudden the atmosphere changed. It got really, really, really dense, and almost like the sound kind of got more hollow or almost went away. And then boom, the electric went out.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, I felt that way before it happened. And I was like, I wonder if I might have done that. So we're waiting and waiting and waiting. I'm like, I'm just gonna sit back and I'm gonna enjoy this time because had been a real stressful day and they had put a lot of work on me that day. And I was like, all right, if I don't get back to work soon, it's gonna be bad. I'm gonna still have all this work to do and nothing's gonna get done until the electric comes back on. And then boom, the electric comes on. And so I'm sitting there and I get back to work and I'm like, I wonder if they would send us home if the electric went out. So I'm like, I'm going to try to will the electric to go out. I honestly had no faith, but I wanted to try it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And I closed my eyes and without trying to keep anybody from seeing me, closed my eyes and I just saw it. And I pictured the electric going out, pictured it going out, imagine the sound, the experience that I had right before the electric went out. Nothing. I'm like, okay. So right at the moment I stuck my hand back on the mouse to get back to work, I felt it all over again. I felt the atmosphere go dense, the sound echoed out, and I just smiled because I was like, it's going to happen. And it did. The electric went back off again. But then we didn't get sent home. So, so that kind of was a bum killer. But
And is that the one that it was the transformer leading to your building?
yes, nobody knew why the electric went out. There was no storm, bright sunny day, nothing strange, no accidents or nothing hit a pole. So finally they got an answer from the electric company. It was the transformer that led directly into the building. It had, I guess, I don't know, fizzled out. So they got it back on before the end of the workday. They come right out and was working on it. But it was just kind of odd. I was like, that's weird how it was the one directly into the building. And if it was fizzling out, you'd think it would go out all at once and not come back on until it was fixed rather than go out, come on, go out again.
Yeah.
At least in my head, I don't know how electricity works, but that's not the first time that kind of situation has happened to me.
Really?
No. In my old house, we had a weatherhead that led directly, all the electric lines went to the weatherhead, which led into all the wires in the house. And
wait, it went to a what?
A weatherhead. It's called a weatherhead. It's what the main lines from the electric pole connect to before it runs into your house.
Oh, okay.
It started sparking and I knew that it was going to happen again. Atmosphere changed and I knew something really bad was happening. And I was trying to tell my boyfriend at the time, like something's going on. And all of a sudden I see these blue balls of, I don't even know what to call them. They were just little blue balls with like a comet streak behind them, bounce across the ceiling. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And then all of a sudden all the power shuts off. And I call the electric company, I think. Yeah, I called the electric company and they said that that my address had a fire reported near it to get out of the house immediately. I'm like, a fire? So I run out of the house and look, and the weatherhead had set itself on fire from sparking.
Oh, wow.
And I tell people this story today and they're like, you should have never seen any blue sparks bouncing across the ceiling. That wouldn't have happened. And I mean, they were everywhere. It was like they were shooting out from all different directions, just like crawling across the ceiling and down the wall. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. It was just a massive electric explosion.
Huh.
But I dragged my kids out of the house by their feet if I had to. That's what I ended up doing. And I was like, it was funny too, because when I called the electric company, they said, yeah, there's been a fire reported in the area. And I'm like, a fire? I didn't even know my house was on fire.
Yeah, that's not something you want to hear.
No, especially when you're in there and you still don't know.
Yeah. Hmm. Um, the other thing I would suggest, as well as the meditation, um, especially when you start feeling energy moving around you, look up different breathing exercises.
That would be good, I think.
Some
Really,
sometimes it sets it off more, but sometimes it calms it down. Like there's one of the ones for me that works really well is to breathe in as slowly and deeply, and it's almost like you breathe in, say, over the course of 4 seconds until your lungs are completely full, and you hold it for twice as long, and then you slowly let it back out, and you hold your lungs empty for a few seconds, and then breathe in slowly again. And I've found that this works with when the energy starts going haywire. Sometimes it ramps up the energy, but not in a painful way. But also sometimes, even if I'm like sick, like doing that can sometimes make me feel better because it raises energy.
yeah. That's definitely something I'm going to try because I really feel like I need to get a handle on it because I can feel it building around me
Hmm.
again. Um, and I don't want there to be this big release because it freaks my kids out.
Sure.
So
And
yeah, I'll have to try
and
that.
and and if you can handle it, if anything, if it starts developing with your daughter too, you'll know what's going on.
Yeah, she's actually went through three phones in a matter of
Yeah.
a year. So I know it's starting for her. So I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't have to be that breathing exercises, but try different breathing exercises until you get one that like calms your system a little bit.
Yeah, I'll definitely try that. I feel like that could be helpful for sure.
That's probably my go-to with almost everything. Like once I realize how well it worked for me, like I said, even if I'm not feeling good, sometimes I'll just stop and do a deep breathing exercise and be like, okay, I'm feeling better now.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah.
if the energy's active, like it might be a slight pulse, and I'll do it, and the energy will then go into a major pulse because it's also raising energy. So, but it's balancing it at the same time that it's raising.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I feel like maybe the breathing exercises could help to circulate it evenly.
Yeah.
I feel like it builds in one area or I'm not familiar with chakras, but you know, I get pain in my head or I get pain in my back or I get that
Hmm.
burning pain in my shoulder. I'm like, well, maybe it's, building in that specific area. And
If
if breathing exercises will help to release that or even it out, that would be amazing because
the,
it'd be
the
nice not to have to deal with that kind of thing anymore because sometimes that pain can get unbearable.
yes, yeah. And the other thing about pain is because energy is blocked.
Oh, that makes sense.
So if it is blocked, it's trying to tell you something. And I've never been great at figuring out in me, but with other people, I had a girlfriend who had massive Kundalini, and I could place my hand on the chakra that was hurting and get all kinds of information.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't work with me, when I'm hurting, it's like, okay, I don't know why you're hurting, please stop. But I could do it. I was able to do it to her very easily.
I have a question for you. Was she able to do that to you as well? Be able to tell you things that were going
No,
on? Oh, okay.
nope,
So it was kind of a one-way street.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But I think by that point, I had also gotten it pretty well under control.
Right.
So I mean, it's still every once in a while I'll get pain across one of my chakras, but it's not like it was before I knew what it was.
Yeah, and I feel like the older I get, even though I didn't understand what this could possibly be until recently, I feel like I've found small ways to deal with it or to at least
Hmm.
control it a little better. And now my curiosity's peaked, and I've been researching it like crazy because I want to know everything about it because it's everything just matches up so perfectly. And now, I don't not just want to control it, but I want to be able to, you know, and not really enhance it, but grab a hold of it to be able to, if
Utilize it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for.
I mean, do you get sick a lot?
Oh, yes. Well, actually, it's funny that you say that because when my first experience happened with the cat, uh, I was actually diagnosed with asthma around the same time. And after that, I was sick at least 3 times a year. And a lot of times I'd be so sick, I would end up in the hospital. And all of it was surrounding my lungs. And to me, 11, 12, 16, 17, 18, healthy person shouldn't be getting sick enough to be hospitalized from asthma alone.
Yeah.
So, and here recently, um about 5 years ago, I just stopped getting sick all of a sudden, and things just got easier. Things lightened up, not so much paranormal activity, not so many shadows seen. That was when I moved into the other house, and I stopped getting sick as often. And then I move in here, and all of it has ramped back up again, but I've not gotten sick. So I'm
Well, that's
wondering
good.
maybe I'm starting to really get a control
Yeah.
and find my own little ways to control it.
I
Uh,
for me, it feels like it keeps me from getting sick.
See, I feel like if that's what was causing it, or if it was connected to it, maybe it was just because it was just out of whack. Like
Yeah,
everything was just
unbalanced.
out of sync. Yeah. And
And
maybe that's
balance with this stuff is the key.
right. And I feel like I got really balanced. And then I moved in here and I still feel balanced, but I don't know, maybe it's me because I kind of miss the activity.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe it's me kind of bringing it back to the surface again, but I still feel balanced.
And that's maybe why you're not getting as sick.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Or maybe it's my daughter. Maybe my daughter is starting the stuff. Who
Yeah,
knows?
picking it up from you.
Right, exactly. Maybe it's not me anymore.
Now, when you've had when you've been in relationships and stuff, has anyone that you've been with had picked up any energy or anything from you?
Um, it's funny you say that because I feel like I've always gotten with people who absolutely have no belief or faith in anything I say when it comes to the paranormal.
Hmm.
And it drives me crazy because at the old house, I would feel the entire house would just shake and vibrate. And my sister could even feel it. And it would feel like a truck was running over top of the house. And I would ask him, I said, did you hear that? Did you feel it? Because you feel it, hear it, and just like sense it. Nope, he didn't hear it. He didn't
Hmm.
feel it. And it was like he was completely
Blind?
yeah, it was like he had
Yeah.
built up this wall. And it's funny because he actually had the same mindset as my family. Everything was demons.
Ah.
So I wonder if that played a factor in him not admitting to things he had experienced around me or not or having a wall up and not being able to experience it.
Yeah, and it happens. I mean, two people. I've had it happen where people are, one person around me didn't experience what other people did. So it's not, and that in the case I'm thinking of wasn't even somebody who blocked this stuff out. It was someone who had lots of experiences with me, and he just didn't see anything.
Wow. That's ironic how that can happen.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It was the one thing about the experience I remembered wrong until I looked at my notes on it and went, oh, well, that doesn't make any sense, And I'm like, the way I remembered it made sense, and I think that's why I remembered it that way.
right. Oh, that's funny. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's odd. And it makes you wonder if I don't want to outright think that people are not being honest, but it's so blatantly there in front of, our faces that how could you not see or hear it? But then they just don't.
Yeah,
So is that wall? Are they just not able to experience it? So it's a funny
possible.
it's a funny phenomena.
And it could very well be that they're just not capable of having those experiences.
Right. And I believe there's probably people, and it makes you wonder if they're almost on another wavelength.
Yeah.
Mind, their mind frame, their thought processes are on another wavelength.
Their interpretation of reality doesn't have room for this stuff.
Right. And that makes complete sense when you say it like that, why they would not believe me.
As opposed to the people like yourself or like me or various other people I've had on the show where we've had lots of different experiences.
Yeah.
And sometimes the people on the other side say, well, you're just making it up or you're crazy because no one has all these experiences. But they're all, I think, pretty much connected. It's not like all these different things are happening.
Right. And,
they materialize as different things, but they're from the same source, basically.
right. And it's consuming as well because you can't explain it fully. You have your theories, but you can't explain it fully. So I tend to dwell on it.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that brings it out more.
Right, exactly. It's really consuming. And when you try to talk to people about it, even people that, are in the paranormal field or in the cryptid field, they don't really have an open mind to everything.
No.
So you can't just go around telling all your stories to any one person in particular and them not think you're crazy at some form or another.
I generally assume people are not crazy unless there's like red flags there somewhere. I mean, you seem to have a very down to earth view of how this stuff plays out for you. You're not you're not coming across like your head is in the clouds.
Right.
And some people do. And it doesn't mean they're not having those experiences, but it makes you wonder if they're not enhancing those experiences because of the way they view things.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you get someone who's down to earth and just says, well, this is what happened, and that's that, I think it makes, to most people, I think it makes it seem more believable. But it's the presentation, it's the interpretation that, changes from person to person. I mean, the experiences are there. To one person it's a demon, to someone else it's not a demon.
Right,
but
exactly.
The experience is the same.
Right. And the thing with Bigfoot, to some people it's a cryptid, could be real creature. To us other people it's paranormal. So yeah, I see where you're going. I see what you're saying.
But whatever it is, it's still, when people see Bigfoot, I tend to believe they probably saw something.
Right.
What exactly it was, who knows? When you hear that voice in the, talking through the door, you could fully say, well, I think there was a girl sitting there, on the other side of the door. That's your interpretation. It's not right or wrong.
That's actually a really refreshing way to look at it. And that might be why, some people's experiences differ than others when they recall them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Our interpretation, our the way we camouflage the stuff in our own understanding is what makes the difference. And that's why I like looking for the commonalities in the experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because with this Kundalini stuff, I always broke everything that was going on around me into all these different pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll drive you nuts researching 50 different things. If I had known it could potentially have one name, that would have helped me out a long time ago. But I'm glad to know, at least now, that there's something solid that I can look into, that I can try.
It was a revelation to me, and I was just like, oh my God, this is everything I'm experiencing.
Yeah. And it's funny because the one that I listened to of yours that made me aware of Kundalini, the title said Kundalini and electric people. I'm like, oh, electric people, that's me, because I've researched it before. And then you start talking about Kundalini, I'm like, no, that's me.
Yeah. And that was a hard show for me to do. I think that's the first time I really talked about my experiences. That was the one with Luke, right?
Yeah. And you know what? I'm really glad you did, because I think that you did like a follow-up show later. And you said you had a lot of responses. So I really feel like a lot of people didn't know what this was and probably needed to hear it.
And that's why I wanted to do it, because I figured that was, I mean, just going through life, I occasionally meet people who have active Kundalini and they have no idea what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I didn't know.
One of the weird ones was I worked with a girl who definitely had signs of it, and I was like, huh, but it doesn't seem like like things weren't quite fitting quite right. And then I realized it was her boyfriend who had it.
Oh, so it was kind of
And,
rubbing off on her.
right. And when she broke up with him, it all went away. And I went, huh, that's really
Wow.
fascinating.
That's kind of curious to me. I wonder, I'm going to talk to some of my friends now because I wonder if I haven't been rubbing off on anybody. That makes me
Maybe.
curious now.
And it may be compatible frequencies too.
Yeah, oh, that's true. That makes sense actually.
So, I mean, I think we're all at slightly different frequencies, and some are compatible and some are not.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I think that goes along with why some people can experience stuff and some can.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that makes sense why it would only rub off on somebody that I would vibe with, basically.
yes, yeah. And it's not that they're the same as you; it's that the frequency of energies is compatible.
Right.
Because if it was the same, it seems like it would be an interference pattern. It would just block it,
Oh, yeah.
like
It's
just
kind of has
like
the
two
opposite
magnets
effect.
coming together.
That's true, yeah. It has the opposite effect. And that makes me wonder almost if why my ex never got to experience anything because I feel like he was totally on another wavelength. Maybe it was just bouncing right off of him, like you said,
Yeah,
magnets.
could be. Um, and I'm very aware of that with people. So most of my relationships have been with people who I can feel that energy connection with.
Yeah, and
So
that's I'm
so
sure
it almost always rubs off.
that I'm sure that when you get around somebody who has it, it's like an explosion every day.
Yeah, sometimes.
And but you know what? It's good when you get somebody that you can be close to that understands it and is not really suffering through it with you, but can be sensitive about it with you and
Mhm.
not just blow it all off.
Well, I think the last person I knew that had really rampant Kundalini, she had learned a little bit of Reiki, and when mine went off one day, like it was just pulsing right up my back, and I said, "Okay, try some Reiki on me now," and she almost blacked out.
Oh my goodness. So she was really, I mean, she could feel the energy and it really affected her deeply.
Well, apparently, as soon as she touched my spine, it was almost like grabbing an electrical current. She couldn't let
Wow.
go, and it was literally making her black out. And finally, she was able to pull free of it. She's like, "I don't want to do that again."
Oh wow. That's intense. I've not really had that much energy come off me, at least when somebody else has touched me, but I've certainly felt a lot of energy come off me when I've tried
Yeah.
to touch other objects. And
Well,
I wonder if it had been somebody else that touched me rather than me touching a door handle, if they would have gotten thrown because it's
possibly.
that strong.
Now, do you feel like the energy picks up when you go to sleep?
Um, I feel like I almost feel like when I'm relaxed and on my way to sleep, I feel like everything levels out, and that's when I usually feel like the crawling up my spine, and
Hmm.
it's really euphoric. It's really comforting. It and a lot of times when I'm going to bed like that, and I'm feeling this tingling sensation in my scalp and my lower neck, I almost know I'm going to have a dream that's probably going to come true at some point.
Hmm.
It's like it affects my dreams almost. Uh,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Although it's not necessarily always prophetic. It's just that what I think of as more big dreams
yeah.
when I get a lot of Kundalini. But apparently, I pulsate when I sleep, and
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
it wakes me up.
Yeah, I've never had anything like that when I'm sleeping. There was a situation. This happened after a cat meow. Me and my boyfriend at the time. We were 14, so it's puppy love. But we were sitting in the car, and he said, "I'm going to show you a trick." And he gets my ring from me, hangs it on the end of a string, and he says, "We're going to ask it questions." I
Hmm.
had never seen anything done like this. And he starts asking it questions. And then he says, "Are you done answering?" Because it was just wildly going in circles. And it answered yes. And he said, "Too bad. We're going to keep asking you questions." And all of a sudden, I got this weird feeling. Again, the atmosphere changed, the sound changed. And then you heard this really weird meow. Like it was almost like a screech, like right before a cat fight, right underneath the car we were sitting in. And instantly I started going in shivers and I couldn't stop. And he got mad at me because I'm trying to tell him, get my mom, get my mom. I can't stop. I don't know what's going on. And he's got mad at me. And finally, his friend helped me back to my house. And it's went on. I shook for probably a good 15 minutes. And still to this day, I'll go through periods where it's like a shiver. And it'll be warm. And I won't even feel cold. These are not the moments where I do feel cold, but I'll just be shivering.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's happened when I'm sleeping though.
Well, I would think that would wake you up.
Yeah, I would think so because it can get a little violent because I can't control it.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are some people who have been diagnosed, with what is it?
Epilepsy.
Epilepsy. Yes, that might actually be Kundalini.
Yes. Yeah, and I remember you talking about that, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds like my shivers," because I hadn't even thought about that. To me, it's just so normal because it's something I deal with sometimes on a bi-monthly basis. It's not that uncommon for me to just get these shivers and I can't get them to go away. And I'll be talking to somebody and my voice is shaking and they're like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm not cold." So yeah, it just reminded me, it brought me back to all that. So,
if I were you, I would, with the whole cat thing, I would if you can get into a meditative state, I would focus in on that first cat experience if you can.
Oh yeah.
See if you can pick anything else up about it.
That would be kind of neat. I mean, I would like to try that for sure. And I just realized something. The story I told you, again, a cat connection. My daughter, the thing that was torturing her, it was a triangle cat.
Yep. Yep.
Now that I think about it, yeah.
So you definitely have some kind of cat spirit guide symbolism going on.
Yeah, it's definitely something I want to try because if I could understand it more, that would be a good thing.
Yeah. There could be something hidden there subconsciously that you just need to kind of work out.
Yeah, maybe it could provide some sort of answer. Who knows?
Or at least progress in the right direction.
That's true. That would be nice too.
All right. Well, this has been really interesting. I'm glad you were willing to talk about this.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you having me come on to talk to him about it.
And of course, people can always write me if they have other, weird stories in general, but especially stuff like this because it's not talked about a lot.
Right.
And everyone seems to be, have slightly different experiences with it. It's not like it's the same thing straight across. It has a lot of different effects.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like any one person experiences it the same way.
Yeah, it's very personal.
Yes, definitely.
But thank you for sharing all that with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Seriah. It's been good talking to you.
All right. And I have a little extra to add to that since I talked to Gwendolynn. And she had sent me a video clip that she was doing on Facebook Live where you can actually hear the mimic. And so this is like what she said right before. And then I boosted the mimic in the background. And her friend, responds that she also heard it and just kind of seemed uncomfortable that she heard it at all. It's kind of interesting. So I'm going to play you for that right here.
Never actually ready. Yeah. Did you hear that? I heard it.
Okay, and she also had written that she had tried meditating on the cat, that being the cat that kind of started everything with her. And she said she saw a large black cat, entirely too large to be real, run across her yard. Then she saw an orange cat come around the corner of her garage. Her dog ran up to it, and the cat just dissipated when it got to it. So that's kind of interesting. And if anyone else has experiences like that, with cats or animals that seem to be connected to your paranormal experiences. I'd love to hear about them. But that is all I have for this week. See you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is made possible in part from our Patreons, and we thank you and everyone listening for helping us continue this exploration of the strange. You can always find everything Where Did the Road Go related at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. And thank you so much for your support.